Here we are, my friends, already the 8th day of September, 2013. You probably saw out there on Friday and Saturday, and now today on Sunday, a few of the video clips of John McCain being confronted at town hall meetings across the state of Arizona that the member of the Keating Six, no one is able to ever get rid of. The anti-gun, world government promoting, open border promoting, banker bailout promoting, piece of absolute traitorous garbage. The Chucky Schumer dressed up as a Republican. But we posted some videos up on Infowars.com of what really went on at those things, shot from behind the podium, where you see everyone screaming at McCain, everyone hating him, and saying he should be arrested for treason and running al-Qaeda. And this is happening all over the country. People are waking up to what's happening. And this is really a manifestation of the accelerated understanding people are having about the level of tyranny that we're under and are about to be under, because things are rapidly degrading right now, obviously. And you've got those groups of people that are waking up very, very fast versus people that are actually getting more into their nihilistic denial and their criticism of those of us that are trying to reverse the degenerative tide that we've been swept under by. But the cattle, the willingly ignorant, willingly duped, arrested development population out there, they don't count. They're just prey that the globalists have always been feeding on, and the globalists want to make us all like that. But it doesn't matter. If 5% of us are awake and don't go along, the New World Order can't get away with this. And we're talking maybe 30, 40% of the country that is really waking up fully right now. I'd say 10% is hardcore awake, 30, 40% somewhat awake. And once you reach that tipping point, if they just wake up one more person, it's bye-bye New World Order. We can all then basically just passively bring this thing down, and no amount of false flags, no amount of staging new wars, no amount of anything is ever going to put it back together again, because here's the big issue, the good news. The term false flag, self-inflicted wound, inside job, frame job, setup, qui bono, who benefits in Latin, that is now popular nomenclature across the world. And we have now seen everyone from Rush Limbaugh to Ted Cruz to Ron Paul to Rand Paul to Pat Buchanan and so many others now saying it's an inside job. The Russians saying it's an inside job. Pundits on Fox News having debates about inside job. The Russian report that the latest chemical attack's an inside job. If you take the power of the false flag, the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, away from the technocrats, it's pretty much game over. Because sometimes they don't even stage stuff. It happens, but they use that to take our liberties. Like there's a mass shooting, then they want to take everybody's guns, when guns on average make us safer. The collective guilt is gone. The collective fear is gone. People now understand. Thank you for joining us on this historical 8th day of September 2013 on this Sunday transmission. I am your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be live here for the next 2 hours, as we are live every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. And we're here weekdays, of course, 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. The news websites are Infowars.com and Prisonplanet.com. And the nightly news channel is InfoWarsNews.com. Okay, obviously there's big military developments in and around Syria with more Russian and Chinese battleships, missile cruisers, helicopter carriers, and troop carriers arriving. B-1 bombers and B-2 bombers have been deployed to Diego Garcia to launch nuclear strikes in the Middle East and into Russia. Chinese fighter wings are being moved to their western border as well with Pakistan and India. The world is lining up for war. Now, I don't think we're going to have World War III, and I hope we don't, obviously. But many analysts, you've heard them and seen them on the news, are saying that an attack on Syria will probably lead to a larger regional war, and that there is a chance, in fact, a good chance, that that could lead to a war between what's left of the United States. We're captured by megabanks, UN institutions that are above the law and pay no taxes, who use us as their juggernaut worldwide. There is a very good chance that the occupied United States and NATO in Europe will be thrown into a larger war with the Ruskies. Back on 8/88 in 2008, the day the Olympics began, Georgian forces backed by NATO mercenaries slammed into South Ossetia and Abkhazia, mass murdering Russian peacekeeping troops in their beds, destroying their quarters, firing missiles into them, sending in special forces, and then when the Russians tried to organize for a counterattack, they were overrun and slaughtered by armored divisions of NATO with Georgia. And, of course, the mass hoax was launched that day. I got up and heard, did you hear? My wife was shaking me awake at about 6:30 in the morning. Did you hear Russia attacked Georgia? And I went, excuse me? Russia attacked? So I walked in, turned on CNN. They announced Russia has attacked Georgia. Russian tanks are pouring in and attacking the poor president who was on TV, literally biting on his tie, begging for NATO help. And NATO began to send in C-130s loaded with more commandos. And I got to the office at about 9 a.m., read all the news, went on air and said, well, CNN's announcing Russia attacked. Now, by the end of the show, it was in the European, German, Dutch, French, and British news that actually Russia attacked after they were overrun and they were attacked. So they play a lawyer game. They said, well, Russia attacked, and then the bottom of the article after they were attacked. And they rolled in medium-range, mobile, the big trucks with the missiles on the back, the nukes. And I was blown away. I mean, that was 6 years ago or 5.5 years ago. And I couldn't believe then that they would announce on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, NPR, every station in the country. Go back and look it up. It's now admitted that the attack was launched on Russia. And so I went on air and said, I was duped. I can't believe they'd lie that bad. I mean, even I couldn't believe lies of that magnitude. And then I was called to the national news a traitor, maybe a Ruski agent, folks. Because I was saying, well, wait, the foreign press admits that the Georgian forces, backed by NATO, tried to start a war with Russia. And then backed off when Russia, their chairman of their Joint Chiefs, went on TV, and I played this on the radio. You can look it up from the time, and said, we're going to now start launching nuclear weapons if the troop-carrying aircraft landing in the capital of Georgia do not turn around and take off. You're given 1 hour, and we are going to start nuclear war. You're given 1 hour, and we're going to launch nuclear missiles on Europe. You attacked us, international law. You have 1 hour to pull out. We're going to nuke you. And Dick Cheney and George Bush and NATO and Sarkozy at the time and the rest of them backed off. But that's when I really started to get, wow, these people really are crazy. They really are crazy. And the Russians are crazy too, but they're not the ones starting it. They came in and crushed it. Now, the good news is, if you fast forward 5 years later to 2013, Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Alex Jones, articles on Drudge Report, Matt Drudge. I want to speak for Drudge himself, but the articles on the side have carried it. but all those others have openly come out and said, we believe this is probably a frame-up, inside job, false flag, to be blamed on Assad, who would logically not use chemicals if he's going to get invaded, and he's winning the war. And the intelligence they have is his Secretary of Defense screaming at their troops, their generals, saying, you better not launch this. And the Russians just released a 100-page dossier. It was actually out in March that the al-Qaeda rebels got caught nerve gassing before. They didn't get caught. They upload videos of it bragging. They did it again 3 weeks ago. See, that's what's so frustrating is the West did launch an attack on Russia. That's now admitted. Just the public can't find Georgia on a map. It ain't the place north of Florida with peaches, folks. I'm talking about new listeners. I'm not being mean here. But, I mean, you know, it's admitted that the West tried to start some weird war to see if Russia would back off 5 years ago. It's admitted the rebels. We found a video on an official al-Qaeda website that's been up for years on their channel where they uploaded the jihadis saying, of course we launched the nerve gas attack. Osama bin Laden told us to kill women and children. That, to their credit, got picked up by Fox News. So the good news here is I was on Geraldo Rivera's radio show, and then Saturday on his TV show, I had wrongfully posted a short video saying, well, it looks like they edited me down. Actually, I'm told I was on the full 6 minutes. Just the only clip on YouTube's a minute and a half long. We're trying to find the longer one. But they let me come on and lay out the Russian report and lay out that all these prominent people said it looks like an inside job and that over 60% of the rebels are al-Qaeda, the CFR admits, and this is a horrible plan to destabilize Syria and break it in multiple parts, and that Obama for 2.5 years in Jordan has been arming these rebels and injecting them, and that it's not a civil war, it's foreign mercenaries coming in. And so the good news is I listen and monitor talk radio, and I heard talk radio, some of them a week ago, regional and local hosts trying to push the war. None of them are doing that now because every caller I've heard has called in and said it's an abomination. Our government's behind al-Qaeda. They're using al-Qaeda to take our liberties. Our government created al-Qaeda, back in the 70s. People now get it. They understand the term false flag that no one knew 10, 15 years ago. They're now talking about setups and proxy wars. And it's really the public driving this to where Anderson Cooper was pushing war a week ago. He's saying it's a bad idea now as of Friday. MSNBC was pushing the war a week ago. They're not pushing it now. Fox News isn't pushing it now. This talk of it's well known Assad did it, people are engaged in the novel idea of saying, show us the proof. So Putin came out and laughed at Kerry and said, what a liar. Everyone knows most of the forces there are al-Qaeda. Kerry said there's no al-Qaeda. I mean, that's a bald-faced lie. And so they're still doing their old lies, but now they're doing it with people awake, and that's how history works. It's like a light switch. It's a tipping point, and I'm telling you, folks, we've crossed it. So the big question is, what are they going to pull to divert us from this massive awakening on the NSA, on Obamacare, on Benghazi? Follow us on Twitter at Real Alex Jones. You can link through at Infowars.com. to all of our Facebook areas. We've also got Infowars.com/show, or click the Listen tab to find the free video feed of the radio show, weekdays and on the Sunday transmission, as well as the free podcast and free iPhone and Droid apps that are all listed right there at Infowars.com/show, ladies and gentlemen. Well, for the tyrants that run the New World Order, the sands of time for them are certainly running very, very low. And I've got a New York Times headline here that says, Israel backs limited strike against Assad, and then goes on to say, even though most of the American people are against it, the Congress is against it, that the Israeli government is for it. Well, I would say so. The French government's for it as well. All of these different powers that want to slice up pieces of Syria, like the old colonials did, want a piece of it. And it's extremely immoral for Israel to side with al-Qaeda, one of their main enemies, just because they're busy killing Syrians and going after Assad, who morally is a much better guy than al-Qaeda. And I think that's finally what has woken up the American people. But Obama says now that, well, it doesn't matter if the House may not vote, because it looks like he's going to lose by more than 100 votes. That's how unpopular this war is. Just a week ago, it looked like he had the votes in the House. Now, it looks like there's more than 100 votes. He would lose by more than 100 votes. So the House is saying, Boehner's saying, the Speaker of the House is saying, we won't even have a vote then because this might embarrass you. Because after all, why do you need a vote if he doesn't need to do it anyways? I saw CNN during the break, because I have it on in the coffee room next door to the studio, saying, with some guest, a congressman was on going, well, listen, he needs to lead. He's the executive. That's who launches war. This is word for word. That's who handles international affairs, not Congress. Folks, Congress controls the power of the purse, war, all of it. Why not just have a dictator or the president handles it? I mean, that's our Constitution. It's unbelievable. Under the War Powers Act, if ICBMs have been launched, the Congress has already given the president the power with the nuclear football to respond. But he's already been given that duty and been voted that power by the Congress. The argument of, well, he can just strike anybody he wants without Congress to say so or without anybody else to say so because he's the commander-in-chief. He's only the commander-in-chief when war has been declared and authorized. And then the mission, the war bill, is passed and handed to the president to execute. That's how that works, ladies and gentlemen, not the other way around. Or why not just have a Napoleon Bonaparte or a Hitler, for that matter? You know, Hitler was elected, but he used war and crises as a way to erode the basic checks and balances. So here's the big issue. We've got 91% in a Reuters poll. The most pro-war polls I see are 15% for it. WorldNet Daily did articles, Infowars.com did articles, off the Weekly Standard did articles off of congressmen and women who put out press releases in the last week saying the calls they were getting. 540-something to 2, 520-something to 4, 102 to 1, 99 to 1. It's over 99 to 1 phone calls, Republican and Democrat. You've got all these Republicans saying, well, I've never seen such an overwhelming response. I've never seen such a absolute no message from the American people. And so they're backing off. But now the new spin is, well, you know what? We didn't need the Congress anyways. Yeah, there it is. Calls to Congress, 499 to 1 against Syrian war, WorldNet Daily. And then if you pull up our article, we just said 99 to 1 just to be, you know, people accuse me of exaggerating, and sometimes I do by accident. I got to be honest. I tend to actually not tell you how bad things are just because it sounds too crazy. Or when things are really good, I just went with one congressperson's 99 to 1 and had that headline up. It showed the 500 to 1 type stuff under it. We can pull up the WorldNet Daily article, but also pull up the Infowars.com. Type in 99 to 1 against the war. 99% of Americans against the war, Infowars.com. You can pull it up. And the reason our article is important is you can then link directly through to all the actual tweets and press releases and websites by the bipartisan Republicans and Democrats saying they've never seen this much opposition. So the term false flag is now mainstream. The term stage terror is now mainstream. The term Hegelian dialectic is now mainstream. The term problem, reaction, solution is now being used on C-SPAN, Fox News, and CNN. The Russian report is out that, by the way, I don't just believe the Russians. The Turks, that have one of the biggest armies in Europe, probably the third largest, well, maybe the largest for actual troops. They want war. They've been shelling Syria off and on for 2.5 years. They want to take a big part of Syria. Okay? They used to run Syria under the Ottoman Empire. The corrupt Turkish government last year and this year caught al-Qaeda jihadis trying to cross the border into Syria with nerve gas. Okay? The rebels have uploaded video after video after video with them loading it, singing songs to Osama bin Laden. You can go to Infowars.com, pull them up, but now it's even BBC, AP, Reuters, Fox News, you name it. It is real jihadis, the same ones taking over Christian villages, blowing everything up, chopping Christian priest heads off, shooting nuns in the back. I mean, there's new videos every day we put on Infowars.com. And the good news is they're finally getting picked up by the news. This is who Obama calls his rebels, who they did call protesters and demonstrators before. So it is incredibly evil. And I want to open the phones up and get your take on this. Is this the collapse in confidence in the establishment? And what will they do, do you think, to get the public back in line to go along with what the globalists are pushing? The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-2539. The weekday number doesn't work. We run everything out of my studio on Sunday, so this is directly into our studio. 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-2539. We're opening the phone system right now, so give it a minute because we haven't turned it on yet. It's computerized. Now, that said, we have an update up on Prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. Dyess Air Force Base in West Texas. Tuesday, I got a call from, let's just say, a high-level source at the base saying, Alex, we're not supposed to have nukes here since the 80s, the 1986 START Treaty. They pull them out of mothballs, load them on trucks, don't sign paperwork, just like the thing that happened in Minot, North Dakota in 2007 that was a national scandal, and they're being shipped to South Carolina. We called the base and recorded it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And when they answer the phone, they go, what, do you want to know about the weapons transfer? But they won't confirm or deny it, which again, just adds more credence to our source. So that's pretty creepy. We'll talk about that, too. Folks, I've told listeners many, many times that we have Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC, C-SPAN on throughout the building, just in hallways. We've got televisions hooked up to different channels so we can monitor things, just standard newsroom hookup. So during the break, I go back there to get a glass of water, and I'm watching CNN with retired military officers on saying, you're not allowed to protest when you're active duty in the military. And the people that are criticizing Obama and the Syria strike, they could be arrested. And we were actually able to then back it up on the DVR. We have it recorded. If I have time later, I'll play a clip of it. But the point here is, over a week and a half ago, before Obama even gave his speech and announced the strike, but when they had Kerry pushing it, we saw on Twitter and Facebook all these military people, because a lot of them were InfoWars listeners. They were sending us the photos directly to our email and saying, hey, look at my photo. I'm going public here. Please don't say my name. Because some of them have Facebooks that, they use a nom de plume or a pen name on. Some of them have gone public. We've had some of them on the show, active duty. And they're now on TV saying, you better watch it or we'll arrest you. Folks, did the German military in 1944 have a right to try to resist Hitler? Of course they did. If the president was hypothetically beating children's brains out with baseball bats on the White House lawn, would it be illegal? Well, Nixon said it wouldn't be illegal. When the president does something, it's not illegal. Of course, the courts, common law, Constitution say that's not true. The president can be arrested for misdemeanors like anybody else. Well, these are high crimes, ladies and gentlemen, high crimes and misdemeanors. You can be impeached. And then after you've been found guilty by the House and the Senate, they can have your butt clapped in irons. Any of these JAG courts could go after the globalist. But the number one thing that needs to happen, and Congressman Walter Jones is coming on this week, has introduced the legislation, is to begin impeachment proceedings on Obama. Because if they don't have the votes in the House, so they say, well, we're not going to vote now, Obama, you're allowed to attack. No, he's not. No, he's not. You're only allowed to attack if somebody's got missiles fueling and is going to fire them. Then the Congress has already given the president the authorization. That's why they said Saddam was going to attack England. Remember, in 45 minutes, if they didn't pass the war resolution? And then, of course, They passed it, and he didn't attack in 45 minutes. The difference here is that now people are seeing through this. So there's a constitutional crisis, and day by day, the awakening builds as they try to say, you're a terrorist if you criticize the government. It's unconstitutional to criticize the government. It's illegal. The founding fathers are bad. Obama truth squads will come after you if you talk bad about the dear leader. We'll arrest members of the military if they criticize this war. You keep your mouth shut. You shut your mouth. I know so many people in media, so many people in music, in film, who were all told, you don't criticize government. You don't criticize Obama, or you're going to lose your job or lose your contract. These aren't liberals. These are authoritarians. I mean, Tom Selleck, just because he was a Republican, couldn't get work anymore as soon as he went public for the Second Amendment. Same thing for Charlton Heston, who had work lined up around the block. As soon as he went public for the Second Amendment, boom, no more work. This is the reign of terror they've been involved in, and people are standing up and they're saying no. And so the system can't shut everybody down now. It is not just the right of military personnel, active duty, non-commissioned, and commissioned, to criticize an executive and to criticize their commanders when they're doing things that are patently unconstitutional and patently illegal. It is not their right. It is their absolute duty. I've read the Uniform Code. I've read the military codes. And they're all based on the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, Magna Carta, common law, folks. If someone gives you an order to commit a crime, you become just as guilty as who gave the order when you follow it. That's why the mafia, soldiers get in trouble for doing a murder, and the boss gets in trouble for ordering the murder. The Nuremberg precept is that just following orders does not make you not guilty. In fact, it makes you just as guilty. And then you have the Führer precept that came in 1933, saying the Führer is above the law. And so our government is bringing in the Führer precept, the leader precept, the king precept, the right of kings, the sovereign, where under NDAA, Obama can just say, take them away to the dungeon. And then all of his designates can spy on you without warrants, or secretly arrest you, or shoot you in the back for no reason, or kill you during an interrogation, and nobody gets in trouble because we're getting deep down the tunnel. And our military knows the government grows the drugs and ships them in. Our military knows that the big contractors run the sex trade. Our military knows our government runs and has been training al-Qaeda for at least 2.5 years in Jordan and in Libya, and is trying to turn the Egyptian government over to al-Qaeda while they blow up dozens of churches every week. And our media calls them protesters. Our military knows about Benghazi. You've got the head State Department official, Mr. Hicks, going public. We've got that clip coming up. Gregory Hicks saying he's been threatened and told to shut up. Really? Who would have thought he'd been threatened? The other whistleblowers have disappeared, and we're told they're in the witness protection program and maybe never seen again. What, like Jimmy Hoffa? They're probably dead, ladies and gentlemen. Notice you've heard, oh, a bunch of the people involved in Benghazi, they've had their names changed. I bet they had their names changed. Hicks has been smart enough to stay public. I'll guarantee you some of them are been chopped up, folks, and fed to the fishes. Because they all know. You think you're going to just know what happened in Benghazi and not be killed? The problem is that multiple situation rooms on aircraft carriers and at NATO and at CENTCOM in Florida were all watching live predator feeds of the 7-hour killing of the ambassador and others, and watched al-Qaeda haul all the missiles and weapons out of the 3 warehouses. I've talked to the military. It's all been seen. It's all known. The whole military knows. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. The government runs al-Qaeda. Of course they run al-Qaeda. And they run al-Qaeda, and they're going to turn Syria over to al-Qaeda. And of course they ordered the rebels to launch a chemical attack. Obama says, my red line is you launch a chemical attack, I'm going to bombard and invade. Then they bombard them with Turkish weapons. The Israelis have been bombing them, cruise missiles. Syria is holding on, being attacked by Turkey, Jordan, Israel, al-Qaeda troops out of Iraq, U.S. NATO special forces. I mean, they are just blowing up every church, massacring everyone. Just absolutely 20. And the military is sitting there giving intel and giving drone intelligence to al-Qaeda. And the truth is the military is freaking out right now because they're following orders, folks. They're in there serving al-Qaeda, who's the main force, and it is melting things down. The globalists are still in the pole position to win the race, but they've got their RPMs as high as they'll go, and the engine is rattling, about to explode, and they got 10 more laps to go, folks. Their engine, to use a NASCAR analogy, is going to blow up. The question is, what's going to happen when the engine blows on this? They'll probably stage a big, new, giant false flag. Or blow something up and, you know, say Assad did it, and it'll be so horrible they'll use that as an excuse to clamp down. Because here's what I realized this morning. We're going to come back and play some key clips and have a guest coming on. I realized they know everybody's awake. They just have to have the confidence game of saying, we never said there was a red line. Or, of course we need boots on the ground. We never said there wouldn't be boots on the ground. They're lying day by day now, and they don't even care. They're just going to go ahead with all this. It doesn't matter if they're getting 500 plus calls to 1 in Congress. It doesn't matter if everybody's against it, left, right, and center. This is part of the plan, and they may even want to start World War III as the false flag to totally take over. Got to break a few eggs to make a world government omelet. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the most important time of our lives. Waging war on corruption. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Back Sundays, 4 to 6 p.m. Central. Live. We're live right now. And we have loaded phone lines from folks calling in from all over the United States and worldwide. Your calls are coming up. John B. Wells, syndicated talk show host and internationally known voiceover talent as well for a lot of big movies and TV shows out there. A very informative, intelligent political brain. Will be riding shotgun with us in the entire next hour. And he'll join us at the last few minutes of this hour to give us his take on what's happening and to give us a breakdown of what he wants to cover coming up, interspersed with your phone calls. But I noticed, I was on Google News, and I saw one of the big liberal websites, I'm not going to give it a plug, attacking me and saying I'm crazy, saying that the rebels clearly launched the chemical attack to blame Assad, when you've got major governments saying that, and they call me a tinfoil hat wearer. That doesn't work anymore. You people sit up there and you defend tyranny, and then there's all these comments by Democrats saying horrible things about me and how I'm a dumb Republican and all this stuff. This isn't about Republican or Democrat. I opposed the Iraq war. I opposed the upping of this situation in other areas of the world like Afghanistan. I'm a constitutionalist. I want peace if we're not attacked first. I want truth and justice. And when you look at Obama supporters particularly, I've never seen a group of people that are more tribal, that are more groupthink, that are more cult-like in their absolute fealty to Obama. And so, okay, fine, give him another Peace Prize then. Because during the break, I was in another part of the office and Fox News was on. And it was like a big victory for the rebels. They've taken the great Christian city of such and such, and it showed them blowing up the churches. And then I walked in and CNN was praising it, saying, big victory for the rebels. They've taken the Christian city of, and now Europe, the Christians are fleeing and are begging for to be able to escape to Europe, but that probably won't be allowed. And the host looked all satisfied, like, tonight we'll feast on Christian flesh. It reminded me of like Sauron or something, or Saruman in The Lord of the Rings, saying, tonight you will feast on man flesh. I mean, it's just like, you really get an idea of how the authoritarian left really, anywhere they're Christians, they're happy to blow it sky high. I mean, they want to get rid of Christians. These are freaks. These are, I mean, it was really hitting me what authoritarian trash these people are. And the next time I'm flying and some TSA is like, where are you going? What you doing? You planning something? I'm going to go, oh, this is your behavioral analysis training? You mean for the government that runs Al-Qaeda? In fact, I did that when I flew back from England. They were asking me all sorts of questions, and I went, you know the government ships in the drugs, and you know the government runs the terrorist. And the lady went, I know. You can go. And then there was another guy I had to go to, and I gave him the same speech. Then I had to go back through TSA again to get on a plane from Dallas to Austin. And they were going, what you doing? Where you going? I go, man, knock it off. The government runs all the terrorists. They're like, oh, sir, going through. And I'm like, yeah, it's all fiction. And people are like, come on, buddy, don't cause a problem. I'm like, cause a problem? This country's going into tyranny. I'm not joking. Leanne McAdoo was with me. I'm going to get her on there to tell the story. I mean, I'm not putting up with this hoax anymore, folks. This whole thing of Americans could be terrorists and the founding fathers are bad and veterans are the #1 threat. I thought all this was set up for Al-Qaeda. Oh, you run them. This is just a big power grab. And see, people get that now. And the establishment has miscalculated how dumb they thought the American people were. Now, before I go to John B. Wells and then to your phone calls, because we're getting John on right now, you saw a lot of McCain on TV getting some mild questions. But I reviewed a bunch of videos this weekend shot by independent groups like AMTV in Phoenix and others that do a great job. And they sent us this clip we're about to play. Thank God they did, because I hadn't seen this, of the whole crowd angry at McCain. Not from the crowd, but from behind McCain. You get to see everybody angry at him and agreeing when the guy says, you're a traitor, you're involved with Al-Qaeda, you need to be arrested. And McCain is scared. And he should be, folks, because when everybody figures out how this really works, you guys are all going to be held accountable through a court of law, not an NDAA, but through constitutional court. Because it's all going to come out. McCain met with the leaders of Al-Qaeda in Syria on record earlier this year. Let's go to this bombshell audio clip. If you're a TV viewer, you can see it. But for radio listeners, you can go to Infowars.com. And Prisonplanet.com is in the top tiles. You can see the video. It's even more powerful, but here's the audio.
Hi, Mr. McCain. I mean this with all due respect, sir, as an elected official for our country.
This guy looks like he's in the Army.
We elected you to be representative of the people and against this and for this great nation. But for far too long now, and the rest of Congress, including the executive branch of government, along with the judicial and legislative, have turned your back on the American people and their core values and principles. I can say with great confidence and speak on behalf of all Americans that your actions against this country are treasonous. All of you, against the will of the American people, have aided and abetted the enemy. You and the rest of Congress, including the President of the United States, have went against the will of your people in Syria, regardless of your position and vote, whether it is a yes or no, is still a political smokescreen. I believe wholeheartedly you do not care about the will and well-being of the America or its people. You lied to the American people about the chemical attacks in Syria. The American people know that it was our government that is most likely responsible. There is strong evidence, including video, that these attacks were carried out by Al-Qaeda. And you advocate starting a war, even maybe world war, by taking the same attack and blaming it on Assad. President Barack Hussein Obama has been supporting terrorism. The United States has been funding and aiding organizations, including the Muslim Brotherhood and Al-Qaeda, for many years now.
The king has no clothes.
The same enemy we're supposed to be defeating on the battlefield. At least one country in this world stood up against this government terrorism that you guys support in Egypt. The people of Egypt throughout Mohammed Morsi, which Obama supported as well, as countless Christians have lost their lives under evil people such as this. You swore an oath to protect us and protect from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. The simple irony is the domestic enemy now in this country is the people and government of the United States. And McCain and you and the rest of our leaders are accountable for their actions. It's too bad someone like me is not in office to hold you accountable, because if I was in a position of power or authority, I would have you all arrested and tried for treason against my country under the grounds of 18 U.S.C. 2381 treason U.S. Code. Whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. That is the code.
And
The American
McCain is
people are
laughing.
sick of it. This country rose up against you recently. The ratio, hang on, I have a right of free speech. I can finish. The American people opposed the going to war with Syria, which includes many Marines and other veterans by the thousands.
All right, that's good.
499 to 1.
All right, most of the people are supporting him and clapping, but a few were booing and trying to get his speech shut down. But McCain, everywhere he went, got responses like that. And that's the way you respond to these traitors. John B. Wells, host of Coast to Coast AM on the weekends, syndicated talk show host. I want to get your take on this and tell us some of the key points you want to break down in the next hour that's coming up. Thanks for joining us.
It's good to be with you again, Alex. Thanks for having me on. John McCain has gotten my attention over the years as being one who is the ultimate politician. He doesn't seem to be able to take a side. He just goes from one side of the aisle to the other, and he just oscillates back and forth like that. And somehow you never really get a fix on what his politics really are. But I can tell you this: he's the poster boy for term limits, in my opinion. And I don't know. I was talking with a fellow last night named Michael Bolden, who was talking about nullification beginning at the state level and just forget about Congress, because they're never going to do what we want them to do. And I'm wondering if there is some sort of a mechanism to just remove these people, because there are so many questions, and there's so many questions and so many questionable observations that have been made about his conduct and several other people's in Congress, that I think maybe the best thing to do is send them a message and remove some of the ones who have been in there the longest.
Well said. John B. Wells will be with us for the full next hour. Thanks for spending part of your Sunday with us, John. And thanks to all the listeners out there for spending time with us. You can find all about his show, as if folks don't know. Most of our listeners are his listeners. John B. Wells straight ahead in the second hour, and your phone calls from all over the U.S. and the world coming up. Can we stop the establishment from trying to start World War III? Stay with us. All right, when we get into the next segment here in about 6-7 minutes, we're going to get into plans to stop this and to turn this around, because I'm getting so many phone calls from friends and family and others saying, Alex, we've got to turn this around. What are the constitutional avenues to do that? John B. Wells, host of Coast to Coast AM.com with the great George Norrie and others, joins us. Caravan2midnight.com is his personal site, as well as jbwells.com, and he's on with us right now. But hey, let's go to the calls early here. Let's talk to Caleb in Oregon, who wants to talk specifically. We had people calling 30 minutes before John got on, wanting to talk to him. So you're on with John B. Wells. Hey, go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, hi. It's a total pleasure to talk to both of you guys. I admire both your shows very much. The last few nights on Coast to Coast with John with Professor Griff was amazing, and last night's show as well. I'm looking forward to Stuart Rhodes, who's been on with you, Alex. I just like to say, oh man, it's so crazy right now. My question would be, who pulls the trigger to implement an impeachment process? Because with President Clinton and all that, and I'm not trying to romanticize him at all, but who starts it? I mean,
if they went after him for fellatio and cigars, why not go after Obama? And that's a good question. John B. Wells?
The best way to approach this is through the, since we are involved in what amounts to the cult of personality, then I think we ought to go at it first on the basis of public relations, the PR trick. And what I mean by that is, first challenge would be, I think before we ever get to the forms that we need to sign and the submissions we need to make, I think we should begin with a number of exposés regarding this Nobel Peace Prize that he won for being elected president. I've said before, if Dynamite Nobel wanted to give the United States a Peace Prize for showing how transparently colorblind we are, then that would have been one thing. But to have given the president-elect a Nobel Peace Prize for nothing is lame in itself. And I think the first thing to do is go at this thing from the PR level. And more to the point, massive demonstrations that one way or another are going to be covered either by mainstream media or by alternative media, which Brzezinski just said, alternative media is what's responsible for having put the Syrian attack on hold for as long as it's been on hold. I believe that one way or another, these demonstrations for no war, a la 1960, pick one, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, I think we need to bring those back. And I think they need to be brought back in such a manner that even the mainstream bought and paid for media cannot ignore them, or they will lose what remains of their credibility and they will cease to exist, which might not be a bad thing in any case.
Well, you just said in about 2 minutes what I tried to say in a whole hour, and I want to flesh that out when we come back, because that is the key. And I think we've reached a tipping point, but that doesn't mean we've won here. We are right now at the crossroads, and I want to get your take on that, John. But anything else you'd like to add, Caleb, or did that answer your question? Because he's absolutely right. We should call for the repeal of the Nobel Peace Prize. They should take it back. Or Obama, through decency, because he said he didn't deserve it last week when he got questioned. Well, then we should have a White House petition for him to give it back.
Absolutely, yeah. The only thing I'd like to really add now is just my father was the greatest man I ever knew, and he passed away a couple years ago from cancer at 56 years old, a nasty blood cancer, and because of all the poisons that we're being inundated with, and you both are heroes to me in the same way he was, in that the lesson he taught me that stuck with me the most was that to always search and seek out the truth.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. God bless you, and God bless your father. I tell you, folks, every day or two when I'm walking down the street and I walk by listeners to my radio broadcast, they say, hey, I love your show, but I really love John B. Wells in the weekend, Coast to Coast AM. And I'm a frequent guest on his show, but I tell you, it is hard to tune in and then to tune out with the guests that all of Coast to Coast AM has. But of course, John B. Wells, the hardcore liberty stance that he's taking and the guest he's having is probably some of the most pro-Constitution, pro-freedom, libertarian, not Republican or Democratic type radio out there. He's also, folks don't know who he is, most of you do. He is an extremely famous and successful voiceover talent up there at the very top of the food chain for major movies and TV ads, you name it. And he's graciously said he'll do some voiceovers for us, but I haven't tapped him to do that yet. I've been so busy. But John B. Wells rides shotgun with us for the rest of this second hour today, because I wanted to get his take on things and where he thinks historically we're at right now. But going over some of the headlines, Kerry, of course, said last week that Saudi Arabia has agreed to support military strikes against Syria and to pay for it. Now, we've known America has been like a vending machine to foreign interest and special interest, but now, I mean, it's like we're a $2 whore on the side of the road on South Congress in Austin, Texas. I guess they were $2 about 1920 or something. But the point is that, I mean, this is getting ridiculous. Mercenaries out for hire to Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda Light. Meanwhile, Russia Today reports naval forces face off Russian and Chinese ships against U.S. ships. I don't like seeing America lined up on the side of Al-Qaeda. And we're seeing 500 to 1, 99 to 1, 200 and something to 1, Congress people are saying, depending on their office, against this. We have 9% approval rating for the war in Reuters. The military's coming out in mass, active duty, and saying we don't want to be part of it. And CNN, last hour, I saw him during the break, was cheerleading to make examples of these people and arrest them. Well, folks, it is a court-martialing offense if you're told, go do your duty, go take this to point A to point B, or if it's in a declared war, if you get scared and won't follow orders. But if you're told to shoot these men, women, and children in the back, and you follow the order, you are now an accomplice. Nuremberg. If you say no, you're not a hero, you're doing your duty. So these men and women are doing their duty. A lot of them officers putting on Facebook and Twitter, you can see them up at Real Alex Jones, I will not serve for Al-Qaeda. I will not be part of Al-Qaeda's Air Force. And a week and a half ago, the media said when we first broke this that we had made it up, that it was a hoax. Remember that? Well, now they admit it's real, but that these people are traitors. John B. Wells, what do you say to that? And I want your take on how we stop this war. If Obama can't get Congress to pass it, as they're now saying, well, why'd he go to Congress to begin with? And is impeachment the option? What are your ideas to turn this around, John B. Wells?
That's a very, very pregnant question, and I believe that what we're going to see is some oath keeping. Let us keep in mind that I think that people ask, well, where are the anti-war protests that the so-called left of the 60s were putting on? The left flank moved over to the right, and the right flank has now moved over to the left. So now we who are against the undeclared wars, the burgeoning police state, the big government, the high taxation, those were typically the clarion calls from the left, back when the left-right paradigm was really drawn into sharp relief for the American public and the world at large. By the way, just as an aside, liberal and conservative seem to mean the exact opposites in Europe. So I don't want to get too far afield here, but what's happening now is that there is no draft. I assure you that if there were a draft, these street protests would already be fully blown and ongoing every weekend somewhere. But failing that, since we have a volunteer army, these people didn't sign up for this. These people still swore an oath. They didn't just say, yeah, okay, they didn't acquiesce to it. They swore an oath to defend the Constitution.
And they volunteered.
That's correct. They are not obligated to do anything that violates the Constitution, nothing. And if the warmongers want to call them traitors, well, then let them, because you can kill and you can jail a revolutionary, but you cannot kill nor jail a revolution. And I believe that our military and the people who honor their oath to defend this Constitution, the oath keepers, not taking anything from Stuart Rhodes, is going to be on Coast to Coast tonight. The Oath Keepers are going to be the tip of the spear in this when it comes right down to it. And I believe that if people begin to say, why the Peace Prize, your Attorney General, the gun runner, Benghazi, you lied, your Secretary of State lied, not prevaricated, lied, you're out. Either leave peacefully or we don't have to take the streets with torches and pitchforks. You know what we have to do? Nothing. Do nothing. Pay nothing. Do nothing. Sit. What do you think would happen if we just decided we're going to sit it out for a month? The month will go by quickly, and we'll just see what happens then. You're spending $4 trillion. You're pulling in $2 trillion in taxes. You still come up with only 1% increase in GDP. I think we'll just pull the cord on this train and just stop doing what we're doing.
And I liked your point earlier about every man, woman, and child in a PR war. We have the truth. They have lies. Point out that we are not Al-Qaeda's Air Force. And what are they doing blowing up all these churches? And look at all the evidence that the rebels launched the chemical attack. Let me ask you that question. What do you make of them with no proof saying that Bashar Assad launched this chemical attack?
Utter nonsense. It's just the excuse to begin a new conflict. Is Al-Qaeda Al-Qaeda or is it not? It's been pretty much established that CIA and Al-Qaeda are almost one, at least. Even if that's not true, there are enough people who believe that it's true to make it take on a life of its own. So if you support the rebels, and the rebels are Al-Qaeda, and the CIA is Al-Qaeda, then the motive behind this military action becomes clear. Now, if they throw a war and nobody comes, then what? I'll tell you what. The thing that Skousen has warned us about for years, and that's a false flag in the form of a little mushroom cloud sprouting somewhere, probably in a fairly harmless area, if I can just grasp for that.
Yeah, they'll blow up a bunch of Christians in Texas or Tennessee.
Something like that, just enough to scare everybody to death, and then get them to react to that, and then in future act out of fear of it happening in their
Let me ask you this question. Do you think this is a big awakening we're seeing? And do you think that the establishment has jumped the shark?
Yes, both of those things. In fact, Alex, I would even, I would not ask anyone to join me in this, but I will. I've reached that age where I just don't care. I really don't care. I try to measure my words. I try to hold my tongue. I try to pray for guidance every time I open my mouth about something important. But this really is my greatest fear. If fear is what I can call it, my greatest concern, I'll call it that, because we're instructed in Scripture to fear nothing, and so I try and roll with that as well. I believe that in the more simple terms one can break these motives down to, the most basic components, I think we'll find hubris at the basis of most of them, power and control. And what my gravest concern is that this leader, albeit president is somewhat of a figurehead and he receives his directions from other people, he still is responsible. And it is his name that will be in the history books. I am afraid that it is more than possible, but even likely, that this president would destroy this country to secure a place in history for himself, rather than be forgotten by history as the abject failure of a president and leader that he is.
Wow, John B. Wells, straight ahead. I'm Alex Jones.
Cal-Ben Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars.
Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, from South Austin in an undisclosed location. And we're joined by John B. Wells, who I think is in Dallas right now. I know he's also out in L.A. some of the time, syndicated radio host. One of my favorite. I mean, I love George Norrie, and I love him as well, but definitely out of those two, both have different talents, just amazing talk show hosts that reach more than 560 radio stations every single night they're on, and we are just so blessed to have somebody like John B. Wells out there with the incredibly hardcore guest he has on night after night, like Stuart Rhodes, founder of Oath Keepers, who I've got coming on later during the week. He's got him coming on tonight on Coast to Coast AM on many of these same stations, like 590 AM that you're listening to us right here in Austin, Texas. John, I don't want to hog you. We got 12 phone lines. They're all loaded for you. They were loaded as soon as I gave the number out and I said you were coming on. That's coming up in the next segment, mainly on Syria, but some other issues. But I want my listeners to know this, and long-term listeners know this, but new ones may not. I don't get up here and say nuclear war is a danger normally. But you've got 6 Russian ships, a couple Chinese ships now. Putin said Friday, I'm going to go ahead and militarily back them. You've got America clearly not having the moral imperative. America hijacked. You've got Kerry saying, we don't want boots on the ground. 2 days later, we need boots on the ground. You've got Obama saying red line, saying that I never said that. Do they know how naked they are? Because the fraud, it seemed, just went on and on with these politicians, but now it's gotten so cartoonish. Everyone I know is calling me and apologizing. Family that's made fun of me, neighbors, no one. When I go to the grocery store, I'm mobbed now. I don't mean every 5 people I walk by. Every other person, I'm lined up signing autographs. And again, I'm not bragging, hey, I'm signing autographs. I'm saying that's how popular this message is. People are angry, they're focused. But John, they call me and they climb the fence at my house and they do whatever they have to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? And I don't know how we fix it. I don't know the silver bullet. Walter Jones, the congressman, has an impeachment bill if Obama launches a war without congressional approval. Now he says he doesn't need it because he can't get the votes. States' rights. What do we, I mean, I agree, PR stunts, does somebody parachute into the White House, wearing a banner saying, give back your peace prize? I mean, what do we do? Because my gut tells me we're all in grave danger, because the word is the Wall Street Journal called for blowing up Friday the Russian ships, saying they're giving Assad intel. I mean, do these hubris-filled, because you said it, that's what floats this hot air balloon, is these elites have gotten so disconnected that they think they can just continue to push everybody around, including the U.S. military, including... I'm ranting. John B. Wells, what do you think we should do? Because I'm asking you, what do we do?
I think we should do all of it. I think that first of all, part of the reason, now that was just Brzezinski's comment that alternative media has stalled the attack on Syria. What he left out, and what he is probably not prepared to say, is that all of these telephone calls, emails, all this communication with the legislators in Congress, on the state level as well, when the people start getting uppity, the so-called leaders begin to take notice. They have the leaders only have one agenda, and that's to remain in their positions of leadership. And the reason that it looks so stupid right now is because it's all falling down. That's why it is falling down. Their motives are being revealed. Alex, I've said this a couple of times about the awakening that everybody wanted in 2012. So, some people, I've said, if I'm giving anybody a rerun, I apologize for that, but I want to make sure that everybody hears this. We have awakened, all right, to find that we have been cloaked in darkness against our will for many, many years. And now we at least are aware of the fact that we are in darkness, and now we can start to clear those clouds away and drop those screens. And as these screens come down, the perpetrators of this nonsense are panicking, and that's why they're behaving in this cartoonish fashion. Some of them appear to not even know where they are, and certainly they're not even aware of the gravity of the words.
Exactly. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, John. I'm not scared of them sending a black op team to kill me because I can't live in fear. But I do get scared by how weak and weird they are. When I watch C-SPAN and see these people now, and Kerry was almost passing out and acting really weird, I mean, it's scary that they're so mentally ill.
Yes, it is. And in fact, not to criticize the Lord's creatures here, but take a look at them. Some of them look positively, certifiably psychotic. Look at Pelosi and the looks on her face. Look at this John Kerry. Look at Barack Obama and his hypnotic manner of speaking. I've got a book right over here called My New Order by Adolf Hitler. And if you were to get a hold of that copy, and it's not easy to do, a copy of that book, you would find that what you're hearing from the current incumbent is archetypal textbook Adolf Hitler speak.
Oh, yeah, it's Joseph Goebbels' mind control.
Absolutely 100%, because those Nazis were good at it. And if a technique works, then there's no reason not to repackage it and call it.
Well, you know what they called the domestic Gestapo? They called it Reich Security, which means Homeland Security.
Right.
The black uniforms. Why do you think they've copied the Nazis so much?
Well, because first of all, the Nazis had really good fashion sense. I don't want to.
Hugo Boss, yeah.
Hugo Boss. I'm glad you said it. I didn't. They had great fashion sense. And notice how anytime the evil entity is depicted, always has way better fashion sense than the good entity. Always. Well, why would someone write in the Bible? Why would anybody way back in the day make remarks to the effect that Lucifer was the most beautiful, most handsome angel up there? He was in charge of the music. He was just the cat's meow, just the coolest guy ever. And yet he's the perpetrator of that symbol, the satanic entity. He's representative of everything that is evil, everything that takes something that has been created and twists and perverts it. Look how the SWAT guys dress. Now, in recent years, they've taken to the masks over their faces and the German-style Wehrmacht helmets and the goggles, and most of them carry even HKs, German-made firearms, machine guns, submachine guns, and so forth. Look, World War II came to an end, but Nazism did not end. The Nazi agenda did not end. It just morphed into a different form, and it was just like when Gorbachev took the plaque that said communist off his desk, reached down under it and pulled out the one that said capitalist and set that one on his desk. Poof, business as usual, here we go. Same old song with a few new lines. So
what's the answer? Get behind Walter Jones's legislation to begin impeachment? I mean, if we're going to impeach over lying about sex, we've got to impeach about lying about chemical weapons and arming al-Qaeda. And I talk to our military. No one I know in the military, including officers, high level, they're all completely upset. So that's even crazier. They want to start World War III with the military upset? That's not a good idea.
Well, somebody wants to start World War III because there's money in it. You know, if you watch the second Sherlock Holmes movie, you find that Moriarty says, look, the best possible scenario is that you make the bullets and the bandages.
That's right. Make money off both sides. John B. Wells is our guest. Your calls straight ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, in case you didn't get the memo, it's admitted this could cause World War III. Bare minimum, giant Middle East war, Strait of Hormuz shut down, other major avenues like the Suez Canal shut down. And our media is backing the al-Qaeda rebels, not just in Syria, but in Egypt.
Alex Jones Show.
You know, I'll be honest with you, I love NFL football as much as the next person. I like baseball. I like to go hear a rock concert. In fact, Dave Mustaine's invited me to the Megadeth / Iron Maiden concert coming up in a couple days here in Austin. I'd love to go see Led Zeppelin, but I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that all of that pales in significance when you realize that we've got a government so evil that it wants to get rid of Syria and start a war with Iran. And I'm no fan of Iran. I think Iran sent some really provocative, out-of-control stuff, but Iran isn't starting the fight, and the Russians are on their side. And it's a war crime to start a war. We're going to your phone calls for John B. Wells, syndicated talk show host and great political analyst with us right now. John, before we go to these calls, any other points that you think are important to make about how to turn this around? And what's your gut level, not even prediction, but because that's up to the people right now, where do you expect this to go? Because clearly the pressure is mounting against Obama and the globalists against this, especially as the massacre of Christians accelerates. I don't see them getting away with it, but just to show that they're in charge, as you said, hubris, at one level of my gut, I think they're going to go ahead with an attack, and now they're talking about it being boots on the ground.
I don't believe that these people have even pondered what will happen if they do such a stupid thing, because I believe the entire country will turn against them. You know, we always think in terms of what can we do immediately, but these solutions take a little bit longer to put into effect than we like. We have an election coming up next year. If we make it that far, which I think we'll make it in one form or another to those elections, we have been allowed to, not only allowed, but encouraged to think that the single person's single vote just doesn't matter. Well, that's not true. It does matter. We've been led to believe that, oh, if you send a letter to one of your representatives, you'll wind up on a list. You're already on a list. Everything that you say, everything that you do is being monitored. What does it tell you? You got Nazi-looking, SS troop-looking people on the ground. Now, the SWAT team is sent on what, 90% of any felony warrants that are to be served. You send a SWAT team instead of a couple of capable officers for the arrest. It's nonsense. Get registered. Insist that voter identification be required. Well, you're going to disenfranchise a bunch of people with that. Really? The presidential election is once every 4 years.
They've caught the illegals on record voting illegally everywhere.
Absolutely. And there's nothing racist about it. If you can make it to the polls once every 4 years for a presidential election, you can make it down to your local bureau.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is all about bringing in illegal voters to leverage us out. We're going to the calls, but I think you hit the key here, John B. Wells, and that's this. As we look at this, before they could target a talk show host or a movie star or an artist and persecute them if they were pro-liberty. But now everybody's speaking out. They can't get everybody. And I think we've already crossed that Rubicon. But people need to know solutions, like you keep saying, don't happen overnight. It's like Force 10 from Navarone, based on a true story partially, when they blow up the dam and it doesn't collapse right away. And he says, give it a minute, give it a minute. It takes time, and we're seeing that. So people should be, I think, very, very positive right now. Quite frankly, this is going better than I thought it would, awakening-wise.
Yeah, keep in mind, now this is a little bit out of left field, but you may have seen that horrible video. I almost lost my lunch over it, where a Toronto cop is just shooting this mentally disturbed person who's called him a weenie or something from the bus. I mean, he shoots him from, I don't know, maybe 10 yards away.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Keep shooting this guy. Well, guess what? He's under charge for murder one. So just because they get away from this, don't get the idea that everybody's doing it. There are some psychos. Look, one more point before we go to the calls, Alex. If you can accept the possibility that some people, like in that movie Jack Reacher, I make a lot of movie references, and because they are very powerful propaganda engines. Propaganda that's a bad connotation, but I'm saying very influential. Jack Reacher in that Tom Cruise movie brought up the point that some people join the service as a legal method of killing people. I am sure, not all, but some in the police departments have joined the police departments as a legal way to kill people. If that's possible, do you think it's also possible that politicians became politicians as a legal way of killing?
Exactly. They're just a cross-section of the public, but when more criminals get in, then they recruit other criminals, and that's called a tyranny, and that's the point we've reached. I'm Alex Jones. John B. Wells is our guest here today. We're going right to your phone calls. His website is caravantomidnight.com. Our sites are infowars.com and prisonplanet.com. Okay, I'm going to quit hogging our guest. Robert in North Dakota, your question or comment. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Mr. Wells, Mr. Jones, I'm an 82nd Airborne Division veteran, and I want to tell you, first off, it is my honor to be able to speak with both of you. There are so many things going on right now. I'm a serious student of Bible prophecy, and what I believe is going on right now is these people in this administration, from everything from Mubarak in Egypt, IRA, everything, all these things that you have mentioned, they are trying to spark what the Bible refers to as the war between Gog and Magog. Now, everybody's asking, well, what can we do? You both have brought up some very good points of the things that we could do. I think one of the very first things that we need to do is, as a nation, we need to start praying, because I believe that no matter what we try to physically do, that some of this is going to go down, because every Bible prophecy that talks about the end times, it speaks about one particular verse talks about how overnight Damascus will be no more, and but people's eyes will melt in their sockets and skin melt off their. I
know it's absolutely like somebody got a time machine, and I understand that, and I agree. I've told everybody now is the time to be praying, right now. Let me get John B. Wells' take on what you just said.
God Almighty invented everything. I, the Lord, create the light and the darkness. I, the Lord, create good and evil. I, the Lord, do all of these things. He also told his people, wait in Jerusalem until you're filled. Well, just wait until you're filled with the Holy Spirit. Then you'll have the power to do it. So, yes. And I got to tell you, I don't much care what people think about oh, religious, oh, right-wing, crazy Christian. It doesn't make any difference to me what you say in that regard. This universe did not burst into existence on its own. It is totally impossible. It is more likely than that 50 chimpanzees with typewriters wind up writing a Shakespearean play. Then it is more likely for that to happen than for an ancient peoples and members of that ancient peoples thousands of years ago to write the things that they wrote.
Oh, exactly. I feel sorry for people that are spiritually blind and cannot feel and see what's going on. I mean, we ought to feel sorry for these atheists and people. They have no idea what's going on.
Look what it says in look at the Revelation 16:3. About the oceans being poisoned. The ocean is being poisoned, and all these experts who are routinely baffled, which means they're not experts, they say, oh, the radioactivity will be concentrated in a certain area. Then it turned into, oh, the radioactivity will be dispersed. Well, it's not being dispersed at all, and it is becoming more highly concentrated. And guess what, folks? It's headed for the West Coast.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Next year.
Absolutely. Let's jam in one more before we go to break. Thank you, caller. And I'm hogging the time here. I want to get to all these calls. Andrew in Illinois, we're going to break in a minute. Quick question.
Just to make a comment about the Pantex is just north of the Dyess Air Force Base. That is where the warheads came from.
Gotcha.
What is that base again, sir?
The Pantex, that's where they assemble and disassemble all the warheads. In other words, stripped down warheads went through Dyess Air Force Base with very little paperwork involved, if any.
Yeah, if folks just joined us, I'll talk about this when we come back. The people I talked to were high level, but high level in their area, and they said warheads that weren't supposed to be at Dyess last Tuesday got put on trucks to go to South Carolina. And folks, this source is known to us. I'll just say that. This is not made up. These people are freaked out and now won't even talk to me, so I'm praying for them. And then Lindsey Graham starts saying, South Carolina's going to be hit by nukes in CBS News right after we release this. So I don't know what's happening. I'm not saying there's going to be an attack. But yeah, I'd forgot that there's a big center out there for assembling and disassembling nukes. We're going to come back with John B. Wells. More of your calls. Thank you, caller, for that piece of intel. Why does the United States spend the largest percentage of GDP? Yeah, I'd totally forgotten that Pantex out in West Texas is right outside Dyess Air Force Base. We're very close, where they did commission thousands of nuclear warheads. And if you're a new listener, the articles are in the most viewed section on the right-hand side of Infowars.com. I was told this by a high-level source who was completely freaked out and now won't talk to me because of the NSA, obviously, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I've never in my gut been more concerned about a story, but I don't know what I can do. I've called Dyess like 6-7 times now. We've recorded the interviews saying, what about the weapons transfer? They say they don't have any comment. They're going to call us back. We've talked to captains. They never will. It doesn't matter. I was way above captain. I'm not even going to, in fact, I don't want to say any more to give it away. The point is people were freaked out. This was an illegal nuclear weapons transfer. And who do you think people are going to call when this stuff goes on? They call us because they know we'll research it, we'll put it out. And I wish this source wasn't somebody that we hadn't confirmed and known for over a decade. This isn't like somebody at the base giving me disinfo. That's why it's so horrible. And believe me, folks, this is a dangerous situation. And it's way above my pay grade. All I can do is tell you this is going on. You got Lindsey Graham running around saying get ready to be nuked. I want to jam a bunch of calls in here at the end because you've been holding. John B. Wells is our guest, but that caller brought that up. You know, I've praised Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul, Rand Paul. Some say, well, why are you praising Rush Limbaugh saying it could be a false flag? Because I'm not in competition with Rush Limbaugh, folks. I want to live in a free country. And when he comes out and says it could be a frame-up by Obama, that's a good thing. I'm in this to win it. It's not like we're all a bunch of failed revolutionaries and we can't restore the republic. And if people start agreeing with us, it must mean there's some kind of trick. No. The trick is good people start feeling powerless, so evil takes over. When good men stand up, that's when liberty reigns. John B. Wells comments briefly on that.
Well, you said it all. You said it all. I would have rambled around all over the place. That was very succinctly put, and that's exactly correct. The other thing that, Alex, about Pantex, the first time I heard about Pantex some years ago was not that it was where they're decommissioned. It was the final assembly point for nuclear weapons. So recently... Yeah,
they do both. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to do both. I'm thinking it's probably still the final assembly point for them. I'm thinking that it's not a decommissioning area, which makes the scenario look worse. And Joel Skousen, whom you've had on your program many times, and he's been on Coast to Coast AM many times, he is convinced. And, you know, if you can see him, it's better than if you just hear him, because he sounds real grumpy if you just hear him. But he was like, Mr. Wells, it's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, Joel, you must know something. Well, it appears he does know something. And I'm afraid we may see this. Now, I don't want to spook a bunch of people. I'm just saying, don't worry about it too much. Hey, Nagasaki is a great party town now, right?
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, the people I talked to were so freaked out. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, they should be freaked out. And really, what the ultimate agenda here, Alex, it is not beyond the realm of the possible that there are some people who are trying to bring about Bible prophecy and the end of the world.
Lunatics. Let's talk to Lee in Canada. Thanks for holding, and Truth Raider and others. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Wells, I respect you both. I have a question and a point to make. Actually, my question is, while everybody's focusing in on Syria, I don't know if you guys know, but you must. In the middle of October, actually, the debt ceiling will be hit again. Is it possible that this is kind of deterring from that? Also, they have the FEMA drills going up in the Northeast. They have problems with supposed glitches in Wall Street lately. Yeah,
there's a lot of spooky stuff going on, and you look at these drills. These are martial law takeover drills over 5 state areas. John, your take on that?
Well, what you have to ask yourself the question, what is it that would be the trigger point for these actions to be taken by the government? What is it that would cause civil unrest? Well, disaster, financial collapse, or some kind of deprivation, whether it's a big spark in the Middle East sends fuel prices up to $12 a gallon. It's already $9 a gallon in Europe and has been for a long time if you do the conversion on it. So what happens then? Then the truckers go, we can't haul this stuff for this kind of fuel price. So what do? They protest. They pull their trucks over on the side of the road. They sit there and camp out for 2 days, and your grocery stores are empty. Then what? Pick a scenario. There are a lot to choose from. What we need to get to is, what is the end game? What is the ultimate goal of the agenda?
Bring in global crisis so they can offer global governance and a new global currency as the solution.
That's it. That's it. Create a big enough problem, and we've got the big solution for you, and you really don't have any choice but to go along with it, because you're well and truly screwed if you don't go along with it.
Well, the majority of my military contacts don't know what's going on with these warheads, but they think it's as serious as I think it is. They say their best estimate is it's some weird way to hold the East Coast hostage and actually threaten Congress. But who knows? It's bizarre. Let's talk to Truth Raider in Oregon. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, aren't we supposed to be watching football?
Not today.
I think maybe later tonight I might watch some. I mean, you got to have a little relaxation or you'll go crazy.
Indeed. Well, I think this is basically a false flag diversion. What's going on is something is going on that we haven't been able to touch on yet. It's the realignment of the financial markets, for example, and other things that they're doing out there.
Oh, I agree. They're raising interest rates, and they're using the war to distract from that and drive people back in the dollar.
Yes, indeed. And everything else we don't really know about right now. And then later on, we're going to find out.
Well, let me tell you, they did not want me to learn about these warheads, okay? This comes from a long-term, I don't want to say too much. They can figure out who it is. They probably already have. They didn't want this warhead news out, but that's a good point. John, there's a lot of other stuff this is distracting from. All the scandals, Obamacare. I was at Barton Springs today, for those that don't know, one of the biggest freshwater pools in the U.S., and I had one of the head lifeguards walk over, and then I went and questioned other ones, and they said, you were right. Most people here voted for Obama. So did I. And I talked to another person. They said, well, I didn't, but everybody that had 40 hours a week, they were all cut to 20 hours a week under Obamacare. How do you like that?
Well, how many scandals do you need? And what kind of a diversion do you need to distract our attention from them? In other words, I'm not going to claim to know the answers to these things. I just see a lot of possibilities. But when you have the Benghazi thing, which was serious, that was clearly about an arms deal, and I floated that opinion out on Coast to Coast AM. Then you got the IRS scandal targeting the Tea Party groups and conservative groups. Then you got the NSA spying scandal, and you've got that kid that decided he wanted to be a girl. I can't even call his name right now. He just got 30 years for turning those documents over to WikiLeaks. And then you've got
Randy Manning?
Yeah, Manning. Then you got the NSA deal with Edward Snowden. And he looks awfully calm to me. But he does not have that calm look of somebody who's bought, paid for, and protected.
Sure.
He gets the look on his face of somebody who feels like he's done exactly the right thing. Then you've got the Attorney General suing states for enforcing border control while he's running guns down to Mexico, and this guy's Teflon.
And shipping homeschoolers that fled Germany back to Germany where it's a felony. Let's jam in another call quickly. Robert in North Carolina, thanks for holding. You're on the air.
Hi. I was calling because I wanted to let you know that...
Well, brother, your phone's breaking up now. Can you talk right into it?
Can you hear me better?
Yeah,
now?
real quick question. Go.
Okay, I wanted to know if Lindsey Williams was still right about them going in Saudi Arabia eventually. And if that's so, I don't think that they're really planning on using a bunch of nuclear weapons over there because they want the oil over there.
Absolutely. No, sir. We're not talking about nuclear weapons being used in the Middle East. We're talking about conflict with Russia because Russia says they're going to back Syria militarily now.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. By the way, I speak this stuff to in all the little churches I go to and stuff like that. And by the way, I'm pretty millennial, but I didn't mean I have to lay down. I still go tell about all this stuff.
Absolutely, regardless whether it's pre-tribulation or at whatever, it doesn't matter. We have a duty to stand up. Your phone's just too bad. I appreciate your call. And I'm sorry to Carl and David and Paul and everybody calling and people calling from all over the world. We're out of time. But, John, I know you're a busy guy, but you've promised me off air you're going to start visiting us more often because people love hearing you, my friend.
Well, the people on the Coast to Coast AM audience loves hearing you, too. So let's just make it happen. All we have to do is pick up the phone. And I know you're a busy guy, too, but let's just do it. I mean, how hard can it be?
John, it's really a hardship to come talk to 16 million of your listeners. I'm doing you a big favor. No, I'm joking. Thank you so much, my friend. And you'll be on tonight, midnight Central, covering all of this with Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers.
Yes, sir.
All right. And give us the most important website. You've got a few of them. What's the best site for folks to visit?
Visit caravantomidnight.com. People wanted RF detectors for cell towers and smart meters and everything else. I got one there for you. Get you a free case. I've got Dave Stetzer's filters are on there. They're inexpensive.
Awesome. Great job, John. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Alex Jones signing off till tomorrow.
Protecting your home with a secure